Being and Time was the book that he wrote a review, Being and Time by Heidegger.
Okay.
He was the editor of Mind, 20 years, succeeding G.E. Moore. Uh,
Okay. Yeah. So we are going to study about philosopher Gilbert Ryle, who is also the Oxford scholar, and he was expert in classic philosophy like Latin, Greek, ancient history, philosophy of politics and economics, and metaphysical philosophy also. So his main philosophy was on the concept of mind, for which he was editor also of the work Mind for over 20 years, and he wrote a review of Being and Time uh, of the philosopher Heidegger. So his philosophical logic is the main concept that we are going to discuss about. What is his idea about philosophical logic? What is his technique? How we can understand the logic in philosophy to bring meaningful expression to our language. So he talked about systematically misleading expressions in philosophy, that you can see on screen there, that it was written around 1932. It was the lecture about systematically misleading expressions, and he has wrote like different articles on like negation 1929, are there propositions 1930, unverifiability by me 1936, induction and hypothesis, and categories. But his philosophical and moral view has been seen in his paper Conscience and Moral Conviction, and his most famous book, The Concept of Mind, in 1949, was the major contribution to contemporary Western and particularly the Oxford philosophy. Okay, so now let's jump straight into his concept about philosophy and systematically misleading expressions. So, Ryle says that what philosophers should do. He says that philosophers should first test a theory or statement to see whether it leads to logically intolerable results or not. So what does philosopher first task is? To find out logical inconsistency in any philosophical language. It could be proposition, it could be true logical form, it could be concept, logical powers, theories, etc. So he tries to make us realize that we have to find out the logic in any propositional statement. If a statement is not logically true, then we can map it, connect it to other theories and concepts that has already been accepted. So what he was trying to do, he was trying to coordinate the categories of all theories and disciplines. So what does it mean to combine the philosophy in a logical way? It means that we are going to make philosophy more valid reasoning, and we are going to use it as a tool in problem solving, because once things are systematically written, systematically revealed, then it could lead to better analysis and better tools for solving problems. Okay, so what he is trying to do, he is trying to find out the correct logical form of proposition, and this doesn't mean that it should be free of grammar. So grammar is not getting counted. Proposition that is logically coherent, that doesn't mean that it should be grammatically correct. Even we have seen this fact in the philosophy of Wittgenstein also, that if we want to have a language analysis, then it doesn't mean that we have to look for grammar things. We have to find out the other aspects of a language in order to bring the logic and the validity in that. right? So last class also only we have seen about the Wittgenstein and how his philosophy brings changes in data analysis and the problem solving. So let's see what Ryle is saying. Can you read this line? Like, I cannot just scroll through my mouse because it's a PDF. But in Ryle's words, concepts and propositions carry with them no signal to indicate the logical types to which they belong. So he's saying that the concept and proposition has no signal, has no indication of what kind of logic they are carrying. So they could carry the same grammatical patterns, same grammatical expressions and thoughts, but the logic behind that could be different. And the same aspect we have seen in Wittgenstein also. He has said about a word which could be used differently, right? The meaning would also be differently, like the sandhav. One meaning is salt and the one meaning is horse. If it is brought down in the same grammatical structure, then it doesn't mean that it is used in the same context. So same expression is given here, like concept and proposition carry with them no signal to indicate the logical types to which they belong, right? Now let's see something more. First of all, we should know why are we studying Gilbert Ryle. Very easy. Gilbert Ryle is being studied to analyze the language in a proper way, because it is important to analyze philosophical language in the terms of problem solving and to find out the relevancy from the non-relevant elements. Because in philosophy there are lots of things to study. You know that philosophy is synoptic view of everything. So if we are taking the synoptic view, we should consider only the relevant fact and we should just remove the irrelevant data. Okay, and therefore we do the language analysis so that the structure, the writing of philosophy would help us and would guide us towards the problem solving. Right now, here let's see. The surface understanding of the grammatical form of a sentence is misleading. So if you are just understanding the grammatical form from the outside, then it could mislead you. It could just divert you from the main task of problem solving. So the paradigm philosophical statements are not statements about the world, but comments about the logical form of sentences and a priori arguments in support of them. He is talking about the paradigm philosophical statements that are the statements that is revealed or that is kind of used to find a different meaning of an expression. So first of all, here we have saw that his main task about the misleading expressions in a language, right? Like how we can remove the misleading factors from a language. Now he is talking about the paradigm philosophical statements. Now what is this paradigm philosophical statements? They are model type statements that represent something, right? Like anything that is very useful and used a lot of time, like a concept about God, like God is omnipotent, God is omnipresent. This is all the paradigm philosophical statements, because this represents something that is universally accepted, universally claimed statement, right? And here it is given that paradigm philosophical statements were not merely those which revealed a misunderstanding about the logical form of proposition, along with restating the logical form correctly and giving arguments in support of him. So here Ryle is talking about the paradigm philosophical statement, and it is not merely a statement which reveals a misunderstanding about the logical form of proposition, but it is those which try to show the logic of concepts. It try to show something logic behind any concept used. So you say that it is omnipotent, then why God is not solving everything? Why the power of the God is not being visible everywhere? So this kind of question could arise. But this is a paradigm statement and therefore this is logically correct and we cannot raise questions on that. Right? So that is the reason here the value has been given to the paradigm philosophical statement, and its grammatical context and the depth studies are not taken so seriously, right? So let's just revise what we have studied till now, so that the things would be clear that where we are. So we are talking about philosophy and systematically misleading expressions. So there are some misleading expressions in philosophy that are giving us logically intolerable results, right? And what kind of expressions could give logically intolerable results? It could be anything. It could be proposition, it could be logical form, it could be concept, logical form, powers, concepts that is accepted, etc. Right? So what you need to do to not to avoid this logically intolerable results, you have to try to coordinate the categories into various disciplines, right? So that the logical incoherency won't be visible. And now he's talking here he started talking about the grammar, like is the grammar meaningful? Then he says that no, the surface grammar doesn't matter. When you look at the context of it, if the context is sound and logic and valid, then the surface grammar doesn't matter. And then he talks about the paradigm philosophical statement, that how paradigm philosophical statements are useful by just revealing the statements in actual context, but just restraining from the grammatical parts, right? So three things we talked about here. This first thing is about systematically misleading expressions, second thing is about categories, and third thing about paradigm philosophical statements. So you could write it down, the three things that we have discussed. So this all these things you could write in your papers too about Ryle, that what he is talking about logic, what kind of logic he wants, why he wants this kind of logic, with this logic what kind of problem he could solve, and all this thing you can write it down, you can analyze it, you can criticize it, right? So write down the main expressions, so that the things would be clear to you, and it would not look very confusing, and it won't look disturbing, right? So just try to conceptualize it in a as easy way as possible. Okay. So he is also talking about the philosophical mapping. Mapping means bringing different things in one category, right? Why this mapping is necessary? This mapping is necessary to bring the logical consistency. So you are bringing two concepts together, like politics and philosophy, and you are saying that philosophy of politics, right? One will say that how you can connect philosophy and politics, but you will say that yeah, I can bring philosophy and politics together by bringing the similarities and bringing the results which will sound philosophical, right? So you have to bring two things together to show their connection, so that they are not disputable, and that is what philosophy is doing. Philosophy is trying to map with other concepts, so that we can analyze the synoptic view of philosophy in a very proper way. So first of all, you need to understand the meaning of any terms. Second thing, you need to apply that concept, and third thing, you need to correlate it. So if I am talking about politics and philosophy, so first you have to understand the meaning of politics also, you have to understand the meaning of philosophy also. Then how you can apply philosophy of politics? Where you can apply? You can apply it in study the political part in philosophical aspect. You can also study this to derive policies and build up information, right? So now you have to apply a concept, and after that you can correlate it, so that you can bring out the similarity, and then you can remove the non-similar aspects, right? So these things are possible when you are trying to map two subjects together, but once you have started diving into it, then you cannot make any changes. It would be very difficult. Like example is given, Like if you are following any path, you cannot draw the sketch of it, isn't it? If you are going towards a path, if you have a GPS with you, then it is fine. But if you are going with your own way and you're just asking people around that where I'm going, where I have to go, and this is the destination, how I can reach, right? Then you cannot draw the sketch of the path. That wouldn't be possible, and that is what Ryle is talking about. That we have to do this in the first aspect itself. After delving, after driving into the merge concept, we cannot separate it, we cannot correlate it, we cannot apply the concept, we cannot do that. So all these things has to be done in the prior instances only. Okay. So why this thing? Why categories? Why mapping? Again, I'm saying that to bring out the logical consistency in philosophy and to do the problem solving. Okay. So see here what Ryle is saying. He maintained that there are consistent and inconsistent propositions, and propositions are expressions in language. So propositions could be consistent and inconsistent, and expressions may be accurate and misleading. So there is misleading expressions, we cannot do anything about it, but if we follow some patterns, then we can avoid the misleading expressions. So he has talked about some pattern here, three of the pattern, you can write it down. This pattern, that first you have to, where it is, yeah, see this line, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7th line, you can see that first you have to show the connections, then you have to apply a concept, and then you have to correlate it so that you can avoid the misleading expressions. These are the methods which he is talking about, because first of all, if you have to go towards a method, then first thing you will do is to understand the meaning, right? If you have to discover the philosophy of politics and the methods about the philosophy of politics, then you should know the meaning of philosophy, you should know the meaning of politics, and then only you can apply how to do philosophy of politics. Without the concept of what, you cannot go towards the concept of how. And that is why what Ryle is talking about, that we have to explore the meaning first. We have to engage ourselves in discovering the meaning, and then we can correlate it, and then we can find that the concept is valid enough or not, right? So first thing is very clear and acceptable, that consistent and inconsistent propositions are there in any philosophical language, philosophical expressions. We can see the consistency and inconsistency, but all this consistency and inconsistency should be removed before writing itself. After writing, you cannot make any changes. Like writing is also like you are traveling somewhere and you cannot note down that map. Like you are walking towards a pathway and you are just mapping that what I am writing, why I am writing. You cannot do this while writing, right? So first of all, only you have to judge everything, that what you are going to write, and where you are going to lead this discussion, and what kind of problem you are going to solve through this writing, and then only you can work for your writing. So this is a very important point if you want to write a good philosophical essay in writing. Even in your exams, just take few minutes to just analyze that what you have to write. If you have to write about Gilbert Ryle's concept of mind, then what specifically you are going to talk about it. Just write it down. Note down the keywords, note down the key points that you are going to discuss about, and then start writing one by one. And then you can reach towards the conclusion and you can end your essay. So simple. Like if you start writing and then you will start thinking that I have to write this, no, I have forgotten this, okay, I have to write that also, then it will be very misleading. That there will not be any consistency, and the meaning would totally be changed, and then you will say that what I have written I don't even understand. So this could happen, right? So Ryle classifies now. Now he is giving a classification. Till now we have understood that what he is talking about. He is talking about the inconsistency in propositional expressions in any language, philosophical language, right? Which is systematically misleading. Now he has classified the systematically misleading expressions. Okay, so here we have talked about the systematically misleading expressions in different aspects, and we have also talked about that where the systematically misleading expressions could be tolerated. Like in paradigm statement it could be tolerated, but in other propositional context it could not be tolerated, right? So all these expressions, all these methods give us some meaning about the Gilbert Ryle language of philosophy and its meaning to us. Okay, so concept of mind by Gilbert Ryle, and in this concept of mind he has given the two ways, the negative way and the positive way. In negative way he has criticized the Cartesian dualism, and in the positive way he has given his own concept of mind. Okay. So first of all he has said that there is a very uh, big mistake in Cartesian dualism, and he has criticized the Cartesian thought, which he says that it is a category mistake or the ghost in the machine. Okay, so have you heard about this before? Anyone? No?
Yes.
Okay.
Cartesian dualism.
Yeah, Descartes, you know that he has given the differentiation between the mind and body, which is a core feature of Descartes' philosophy. You know that mind and body are two distinct substances and they have opposite qualities. Mind is mental, body is physical. And according to Descartes, man is the union of these two substances. So when the mental and the physical come together, then only there is a creation of man. And man's body is in space and time. His mind is not in space but in time, but his body is in space. So man belongs both to the space and time, and man is a combination of diametrically opposed principles. So Cartesian concept is basically the psychological concept, and which is assuming that man's bodily behaviors are in accordance to the activity of human mind. So whatever my mind is thinking, I am doing that. If my mind is not thinking that, I am not doing that. And Cartesian denies that mind is anything more than our bodily behaviors, that there are no such things as mental happenings, right? So whatever my body is doing, my mind is thinking, whatever my mind is thinking, my body is doing. So there is a kind of relation between body and mind. But Ryle has says that this is a kind of big mistake, and he says it as a dogma of the ghost in the machine. What is this ghost in the machine? If you start some machine and if it keeps on running without your interference, then a child will say that how this machine is running. Is there a ghost sitting inside the machine? Right? How this machine is actually working? There a big question will come up, right? So this is about our mind and body also. Our body and mind is in consistent work. If our body is completely working, and if you say that how it is working, then Descartes is saying that because of the mind, because of our mind it's working. But the Ryle has attacked this concept. Ryle said that this concept of mind is like a dogma of the ghost in the machine, right? So this is a category mistake. But we cannot say that the mental concept is leading altogether to the physical concept like the Descartes says. So this is this is not a relation which will bring meaning to our philosophy, which will bring meaning to the concept of mind. So he says that mixing up the concept of matter and mind is incoherence, and it is confusing, because mind and matter are both of different categories, and therefore we cannot just bring in together and we can say that yeah, mind is doing work of body and the body is doing the work of mind. We cannot say that. This is a kind of category mistake, and this mistake is meaningless, because you say that okay, I am sleeping, then how my body is working? Okay, I am in coma, then how my body is working? Then lots of questions will come up, and that is the reason this Gilbert Ryle says that this concept that our body is acting on behalf of our mental concepts, then this is a category mistake. Okay. So here you can see that Cartesian dualist dogma of the ghost in the machine is a large category mistake. So the logical type or category to which a concept belongs is the set of ways in which it is logically legitimate to operate with it. So a sentence is logically correct, categorically correct if you can work with it. If we can work with it. So like my pen was green. Example is given, and this example is a category mistake. You know that pain is a feeling, right? Pain is a feeling which cannot be expressed, and now here it is said that my pain was green, so my pain was not colored. So you say that feeling does not have any color. Feeling is colorless. Like feeling you cannot just correlate it with colors, right? Feeling is something, a form of expression. All right, so this is one thing. And if you say that example of Ryle, most famous example about a foreigner. So a foreigner visits Oxford for the first time, and he is shown around the university. So he will say, be seen, be taken everywhere, to the office, to the laboratories, to the libraries, to the playing fields, to everywhere around the university. And then the foreigner will ask, okay, this is the library, this is the playing field, this is the laboratory, this is the office, this is the college building, but where is the university? Right? The foreigner has mistakenly thought that university is also the name of the building, and this is a category mistake. So Descartes is doing the same. Descartes is taking mind as something that could be shown. Mind as something, like he said, like it is located somewhere in our brain, that is called as medulla. What that is been called? Could you just recall? So there is one part of the brain where our mind is located. The Descartes has said something like that. Okay. And that same category mistake is what Gilbert Ryle is talking about. Like we cannot locate mind. We cannot say that mind is located anywhere in our brain, because mind is something which cannot be said as like it has a physical appearance, or it has something that could be explained or talked about. So this is a negative expression of the mind. So it is a kind of category mistake, which is a kind of arguments like reductio ad absurdum, which is an absurd argument basically, right? So now what Ryle says, Ryle says that mind is disposition. So mind is replaced by disposition, and he believes that all psychological terms are more or less dispositional in character. So if you're talking about a person's mind, it's not to talk about a repository which is permitted to house objects like physical world, but it is about the physical abilities, liabilities, inclination. It is a kind of disposition. So if I'm talking something regarding my mind, that is not giving description about my mind, right? It is not a substance. So Ryle denies mind as a substance like a body. You are saying that the body is physical, mind is mental, and these are the two substance. But mind cannot be represented everywhere, right? Mind is a kind of thought, which is a disposition, psychological disposition, which is a kind of reaction to what I am feeling. So if I am feeling something, hunger, I am feeling hungry, then I am saying that I am feeling hungry, and this is coming in my mind. But you will ask, where is your mind? Then there is something, you will say that I can't say where is my mind, but I am feeling hungry. That means this is a disposition. So these mental concepts are dispositions of how my body is actually feeling. So mind is not a substance. So this is a category mistake that Ryle is pointing towards. Okay. So here one example is given. When glass is said to be brittle, it does not mean that brittleness is a property present in a glass. So only under certain condition that brittleness will be visible. Like if I will just throw the glass, then it will break. It will break into pieces. But before that, it is not going to be visible in that quality, right? So this is about the mind. Mind is a disposition, and it's a kind of inclination, right? So mind act on behalf of our body. What our body is feeling, what our body is acting, our mind is going to do the same. It's a kind of disposition. My body is feeling hungry, my mind will say that I'm hungry. My body is feeling pain, my mind will say that I'm in pain. So this is a disposition that Ryle is talking about. Okay. So Ryle believes that disposition are not the categorical reports of some phenomena. So if Ryle is talking about the lump of sugar is soluble, and if he is addressing it in French or any French newspaper, then appropriately or translate it correctly into his own tongue. So to say that this lump of sugar is soluble is to say that if, for example, he is ever addressed in French or shown any French newspaper, he responds pertinently in French, acts appropriately or translates it correctly into his own tongue. Okay, this is a hypothetical statement. You have to go again through it so that you understand. But this much you have understood, right? Like mind, concept of mind is a disposition, and it is not some kind of substance that Descartes has shown us. So this Ryle's philosophical analysis of mental conduct concept is not divorced from empirical consideration, something again very intellectual. So just skip this part. Okay, now let's consider this thing. Ryle, when he is dealing with the intellect, he is saying that knowledge is about something, about some factual expressions, like knowledge how. If I am talking about some expressions that any examples, like I have to study, right? So it is about how I have to study. Knowledge of how is coming up. So knowledge of how is a performing actions which is efficient and successful in the way of his prescriptions. Like I will be told by someone that I have to study in this way, like I have to study in early morning, then I will get a good marks, right? So this knowledge is also kind of disposition. So now you can understand what does actual disposition means, and when it is about the writing the papers, you can use of course all these examples to write about the dispositions, that what does Ryle means by disposition. He has differentiated between knowledge that and knowledge how. Knowledge that is something you are just pointing towards a fact, and knowledge how is about the subordinate to the knowledge that. Knowledge how is subordinate to knowledge that. Knowledge how is performing actions. Knowledge that is some kind of knowledge. You study, you will get the higher marks. This is the knowledge that. Now knowledge how? Yeah, I have to study to get the higher marks. Now the knowledge how is the subordinate of knowledge that. Okay. So this again you will understand by going again through it. Now Ryle is also rejecting the Cartesian version of the concept of imagination. He is saying that imagination is something which is the copies in the mind of the real things. So I am smelling, tasting, feeling, or I am imagining the things just because all the things has actually happened with me before, and that is the reason I am imagining. So I cannot imagine something which is beyond my physical state, right? If I'm imagining anything a priori, that also is related to my physical state of existence. So he has rejected imagination. So that is all about Gilbert Ryle's concept of mind. Yeah.